भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Gurubhyo Namaha. We continue with Gnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, the Yoga of Knowledge, of Renunciation, of Action, Chapter 4. And here is the essence of the verses 20 to 23, translation and commentary by Maharshi Ji. Tvaktva karma phala sangam nityatruptaha nirasrayaha karmani abhipravruttaha apina eva kinchit karoti saha. Next. Nirasiha yatachittatma tyakta sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvan na apnoti kilbisham. Next, yadruccha labhasantushtah dvandvatitah vimatsarah samasiddhau asiddhau cha krutva apina nibadyate. Next, gata sangasya muktasya gnanavastita chetasah yajnaya acharatah karma samagram praviliyate. Here is the English translation. Verse number 20. Having cast off attachment to the fruit of action, ever contented, depending on nothing, even though fully engaged in action, he does not act at all. Next, expecting nothing, his heart and mind disciplined, having relinquished all possessions, performing action by the body alone, he incurs no sin. Next, satisfied with whatever comes unasked, beyond the pairs of opposites, free from envy, balanced in success and failure, even acting he is not bound. Next, he who is freed from attachment, liberated, whose mind is established in wisdom, who acts for the sake of yajna, his action is entirely dissolved. I will repeat these as we go along, but first let's go back to verse number 19 where we left off. He whose every undertaking is free from desire and the incentive thereof, whose action is burnt up in the fire of knowledge, him the knowers of reality call wise. Here Bhagavan extends on the knowledge of who is the wise man, which he began in verse number 18. And he says, wise man is not motivated by personal attachment in beginning an action. And neither is he attached to the action during its process or at its completion. He doesn't depend upon its fruits, and thus, through the whole range of action, he is involved and yet not involved. And here, Bhagavan spoke of non-attachment to the fruit of action because of the infusion of being into the nature of the mind. And he said, this happens, or this is established in cosmic consciousness and God consciousness. Further, he spoke about desire, which is a link between the doer and the action. So, when there is a natural state of separation between the doer and the action, then there is no link that exists between them. So, in such a situation, desire has no place. And this is how one becomes free from desire. Then Bhagavan spoke about being free from the incentive for desire. Here he explained how experience results when the senses come in contact with their objects and an impression is left on the mind. Then this impulse of this new impression resonates with the past impressions of similar experience already present in the mind. And there are many similar impressions which are stored in the deepest level of consciousness. So, this coming together of the present experience, present impression, and the past impressions, similar impressions, then gives rise to an impulse. Next, this impulse develops and rises to the conscious level and becomes a thought. Then this thought gains the sympathy of senses and creates a desire. And once the desire is created, then the senses get stimulated for action. So in principle, the incentive of desire is due to the feeling of want, feeling of lack. I lack something or I want something. So here Bhagavan again says that in cosmic consciousness there is eternal contentment and one feels self-sufficient. So in this scenario, then there cannot be any want. So every action then becomes free of this incentive of desire. Then finally, Bhagavan answers the question as to why a wise man needs to initiate action. So the actions of the wise man then are based on the need of nature, or putting it in another way, the needs of nature are the motive of such activity. So here the most important lesson is that you do not try to eliminate desires or try to reduce one's wants. So this elimination of desire or one's wants will not lessen the incentive of desire. And this is a natural state of non-attachment, and it has to be gained by rising in consciousness and gaining the cosmic consciousness. So finally, the actions of such an enlightened man are not his actions. They are simply the actions of the three gunas. He remains unattached, contented, his heart and mind disciplined. He is beyond the pairs of opposite and liberated. So now these are explained in the next 4 verses, starting from verse 20 to 23. Now let's enter verse 20. Having cast off attachment to the fruit of action, ever contented, depending on nothing, even though fully engaged in action, he does not act at all. Again, having cast off attachment to the fruit of action, ever contented, depending on nothing, even though fully engaged in action, he does not act at all. Now we have seen in the previous verse that with the growth of cosmic consciousness, the non-attachment becomes so profound, and then the man casts off even attachment to the fruit of action. For example, when pure honey comes on the tongue, the taste of great sweetness surpasses in degree all the sweet tastes experienced up to then. Now, if this tongue continues to cherish the taste of honey, then there is no chance for previous tastes to recur. And this is exactly what happens when the mind lives permanently in the experience of transcendental bliss in the state of cosmic consciousness. Here, then, there is no chance for impressions of past experience to capture it. And this is how the enlightened man has cast off attachment to the fruit of action performed in the past. Again, if one has tasted this concentrated sweetness of honey on the tongue, then the taste of other sweets do not leave any significant impression, because this honey is sweeter than any other sweets. Similarly, when a man is established in the bliss of the Absolute Being and acts in the relative field of life, then his experiences will not leave on the mind any deep impression which give rise to future desires. So, in this way, the cycle of action, impression, desire, further action is broken. So, it is thus that in an enlightened man, the activity and experience in the world do not sow the seed of future actions. So the further seeds for future actions are removed. Now this will be further clarified in the next verse. So here in this verse, again when Bhagavan says, even though fully engaged, his organs of action will continue to perform their duties, and these actions then are motivated by nature, and his senses of experience likewise remain engaged, and this is the way he is found acting or performing actions. Again, even though fully engaged, here what it says is that his organs of action continue to perform their duties, and these duties are motivated by nature, and his senses continue to experience, and he remains in the actions, but he is free of both the action and the fruits of the action. Again, even though fully engaged in action, he does not act at all. So here, the words "he does not act at all" denotes his mind established in the fullness of being remains uninvolved in activity. So this is a state of life. Outwardly he is engaged in activity, and inwardly he is established in eternal silence. And this is how he looks, as though he is not acting at all. So this is his state of life, outwardly engaged in activity and inwardly established in eternal silence. Now going to the next verse, 21. Expecting nothing, his heart and mind disciplined, having relinquished all possessions, performing action by the body alone, he incurs no sin. Again I repeat. Expecting nothing, his heart and mind disciplined, having relinquished all possessions, performing action by the body alone, he incurs no sin. The cause of all anxiety and expectation is because of the desire. The actions of the enlightened man have been declared to be free from desire and the incentive thereof, and that is why he is expecting nothing. Again, expecting nothing, his heart and mind disciplined, having relinquished all possessions. Here, the word possessions indicates all that one has gathered around oneself, everything other than one's own self. That means one has gathered everything in the relative, in the changing sphere of his life, other than one's self. Now what does the wise man do, the enlightened do? He relinquishes all possessions And having relinquished everything that is outside one's own self means abandoning the whole field of relative existence, being without the three gunas. Now let us take this further. Expecting nothing, his heart and mind disciplined, having relinquished all possessions, performing action by the body alone, he incurs no sin. So let us elaborate this phrase, performing action by the body alone. So it has been explained before how the mind of the enlightened man remains unattached even when he is performing actions on the level of the senses. We have already seen that his every undertaking is free from desire and the incentive thereof. And so the mind of this enlightened man does not register deeply any impressions of actions performed by the body on the level of the senses. His mind remains ever fixed in being through all activities, and thus established in this absolute purity of being, he is out of the field of ignorance, out of the field of sin. So again, no deep impressions are registered from the actions performed by the body of the enlightened. And he, established in the absolute purity of being, he is out of the field of ignorance and out of the field of sin. Now let's move to the next verse. Satisfied with whatever comes unasked, beyond the pairs of opposites, free from envy, balanced in success and failure, even acting he is not bound. Again, satisfied with whatever comes unasked, beyond the pairs of opposites, free from envy, balanced in success and failure, even while acting or performing actions, he is not bound. So this verse actually denotes the picture of one who is liberated, Jivan Mukta. Let us take the first phrase, satisfied with whatever comes unasked. Now we have already seen that the enlightened man lives a life of fulfillment. His actions are free from desire and serve only the need of time. He does not have any personal interest to gain. His whole purpose of engaging in actions is to fulfill the cosmic purpose. And therefore, his actions are guided and supported by nature. And this is why he does not have to worry about his needs. His needs are the needs of nature, which takes care of their fulfillment, he being the instrument of the divine. Now again, satisfied with whatever comes unasked, beyond the pairs of opposites. Here, he is beyond the pairs of opposites because he is beyond the three gunas. This expression applies equally to transcendental consciousness, cosmic consciousness, and God consciousness. Now we already have seen that transcendental consciousness is absolute in nature and there is no trace of duality here. In cosmic consciousness, these pairs of opposites are accepted as completely separate from the self. So there are the pairs of opposites and then they are the self. And this is clearly seen in cosmic consciousness, this duality. In God consciousness, these pairs of opposites is also accepted but it is inseparable from the self. And in turn, it is inseparable from God. Now again, satisfied with whatever comes unasked, beyond the pairs of opposites, free from envy. Let us look at this phrase, free from envy. Envy is a quality which disturbs one's equilibrium and allows one to be invaded by the dharma of a level of consciousness different from one's own. Try to understand this. It is a quality which disturbs one's equilibrium, and not only the equilibrium is disturbed, but allows one to be invaded. You understand this word, invaded, by the dharma of a level of consciousness that is different from one's own. That means you are not only influenced, but also you are taken over that when you are invaded by the dharma of others. And here Bhagavan says this is the greatest danger, because it will throw a man off the path of his own evolution. So, one who is free from envy is free from this danger. Then, such a man is not tempted by anything because he has risen to absolute freedom. Because for one who has risen to absolute freedom and who is not tempted by anything, then what more could he aspire? Having risen to the state of cosmic consciousness, then the aspiration will be to rise to God consciousness. And one might think that this leaves open a possibility for envy. But in reality, if a man of cosmic consciousness were to see a man of God consciousness, he would be filled with love and devotion for him rather than envy his state. So here it is important to understand that this aspect of envy comes to an end in cosmic consciousness, because he becomes free of temptations and free of want. Satisfied with whatever comes unasked, beyond the pairs of opposites, free from envy, balanced in success and failure, even acting, he is not bound. So finally, when the mind through meditation has become contented in the bliss of the self, there is no possibility of discontentment. Then there is evenness of mind both in pleasure and pain. So one becomes balanced in success and failure and even-minded in pleasure and pain. And such is the state of liberated man. When Bhagavan says, even acting, he is not bound. Next verse. He who is freed from attachment, liberated, whose mind is established in wisdom, who acts for the sake of yajna, his action is entirely dissolved. Again, he who is freed from attachment, liberated, whose mind is established in wisdom, who acts for the sake of yajna, his action is entirely dissolved. So this is something one should aspire, that through constant practice of meditation, a person gains cosmic consciousness. And here the pure transcendental consciousness is grounded in the very nature of the mind. And because this transcendental consciousness is grounded in the very nature of the mind, he becomes liberated from the field of action and freed from attachment. In this state, every action produces life-supporting influences in creation and thus helps cosmic evolution. And so, here, every action is for the sake of yajna. Further, the actions of one who practices transcendental meditation are worthy of being ranked as yajna. They rise to the level of the being yajna, an offering, a sacred offering. Now finally, the four expressions of this verse conclude the development of the four expressions contained in each of the previous 5 verses, which is 19 to 23. And this is the review of them. The first expression, he who is freed from attachment. Here, he who in action sees inaction. He whose every undertaking is free from desire. Having cast off attachment to the fruit of action. Expecting nothing. Satisfied with whatever comes unasked. He is free from attachment. The second expression, liberated. In inaction sees action. He whose every undertaking is free from the incentive thereof. Ever contented. His heart and mind disciplined beyond the pairs of opposites and free from envy. And next expression, wise among men whose mind is established in wisdom. Wise among men he is united, whose action is burnt up in the fire of knowledge, depending on nothing, having relinquished all possessions, balanced in success and failure. The final expression, he has accomplished all action and he acts for the sake of yajna. His action is entirely dissolved. He has accomplished all action. Him the knowers of reality call wise. Even though fully engaged in action, he does not act at all. Performing action by the body alone, he incurs no sin. Even while acting, he is not bound. And he who acts for the sake of yajna, his action is entirely dissolved. It is by reason of this teaching contained in these 6 verses that this 4th chapter is also called the chapter of wisdom, and in essence this is the wisdom of Karma Yoga and Sankhya Yoga at the same time. It reveals the state of realized man on the level of action and behavior, thus presenting the practical aspect of the abstract metaphysical quest which confronts man on the path of his evolution. So again, this chapter contains the wisdom of Karma Yoga and the Sankhya Yoga at the same time, and it reveals the state of the realized man on the level of action and behavior and in its most practical aspect, and not just the abstract metaphysical quest. So here ends the essence of the verses 20 to 23, chapter 4, Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, the yoga of knowledge, of renunciation, of action. This is a lot to absorb and digest now, so I will end here. Jai Gurudev. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu.
शास्त्रं